Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
I'm Chris Stachiw.
And I'm Sean Liang.
And I'm John Lein.
Yes, John, Mr. John, former co-host of the Kulturecast, Lein is here.
Hi, everybody.
To bring his expert knowledge on Werner Herzog films.
Wait. Hello, boys and ghouls.
Wrong podcast, John.
It's like the good old days, you guys.
Supremely wrong podcast, John. Oh, my God in heaven. It's not Friday, John.
It's always Friday in my heart.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. That's what Jimmy Buffett said.
Exactly.
Is that what we're talking about? Today we're going to be talking about Werner Herzog's 2005 documentary, Grizzly Man. But before we get to that film, John.
Yes.
You been watching anything this week?
Archer.
Archer.
I've primarily just been playing Stellaris.
So you've been playing as opposed to watching.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, are we counting the other Werner Herzog movies I've watched this month?
Are you a fucking nerd or something? Who plays video games, dude?
Stellaris.
No, because those you've already talked about those.
Right. So then, yeah, Stellaris and those. And Archer.
Archer's good, then. I like Archer.
Yeah. Oh, The Flash is sucking fucking some awful, awful dirty dick, though.
Hey, I've heard the same thing about Arrow, so...
Oh, I stopped watching Arrow already this season. I think I got 4 episodes into the season of Arrow and was like, nope, I can't do this anymore. And I'm about done with The Flash. Like, they have to do something fucking stupendous in this season finale. Otherwise, I'm done with it.
So what you're saying is that DC products are bad.
I mean, yes.
After seeing Batman versus Superman... You're saying that DC things are bad.
Yes. I mean, I
would never have guessed.
So it's like, I liked the first half of this season of The Flash a lot. And then they took out Patty and they went, like, essentially they sort of reverted all of their characters back to beginning of first season character arcs. And all of that shit was just, like, super obnoxious drama for the sake of drama. And so now it's bad again. And then in the Arrow, they went away from super badass, like, villains to almost a satire of magical villains because they wanted to introduce magic. I don't know. It was dumb.
I've never seen any of those shows, and I'm not, I don't have any yearning to, if that makes sense.
I mean, season 2 of The Arrow is awesome. Because Crixus is a regenerative supervillain Deathstroke, and he, like, murders everyone.
Yeah, but why would I watch 1 and 2 seasons of a show and then knowingly,
Well, that's what I do with Heroes.
Arrested Development?
Ugh. Don't get me started. Let's not open that box. Arrested Development. Dude, what are you talking about? The fourth season was good. It was more Arrested Development.
Just
What are you talking
that one.
Yeah. What about you, Sean? You been watching anything?
I actually have been watching a bunch of like the new horror movies that have come out so far. So I watched like The Boy, Annabelle, which are kind of old, but The Boy is new, and The Forest, which, man, not a lot of good stuff. I mean, I guess I was surprised pleasantly by The Boy.
The Forest looked like fucking shit.
I mean, it was. It's clear that like this movie started as something else, but then they're like, let's throw in this forest in Japan because it's based on a real forest. And then let's try to make it about that, but it's nothing to do with that at all. So it's like shoehorned in there. You can tell it was possibly a decent script about something else, and they just sort of forced it into this theme. I don't know. That's what it felt like.
So you're saying they couldn't see the forest through the trees?
Yeah. It's like
rip. Jesus Christ. It's also got the chick from Game of Thrones in it. Yeah.
Natalie Dormer?
Yes, that one.
It was just not.
It didn't look good. I have it downloaded, and I have no interest in ever watching it.
Yeah, it was one of those where like I rented it. I knew I wasn't gonna like it, but I just had to because I haven't. It's one that it got a lot of hype at the beginning of the year, and I wanted to see it. So, but it was not good. The Boy is a lot better.
Yeah, I saw. I haven't seen anything about it, but I mean, I saw it on the shelves.
Yes, yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, no.
Is it worth checking out?
The Boy, yeah, I think so. I have to say the twist at the end is pretty. It was decent. It didn't screw up the movie like they tend to do.
Was it as good as the one in that M. Night Shyamalan movie? Because that was like the best.
It wasn't quite as profound, I guess.
Is the boy Satan?
He doesn't see dead people.
It's the boy Satan. Well, just from the cover, we could probably guess that, John.
I haven't seen the cover.
Well, yeah.
I just heard the title The Boy and assumed he was possessed by evil.
Small children possessed by evil. What a novel concept.
Before,
yeah. Speaking of overhyped horror movies, the only thing I watched this week, other than large amounts of TV while I was in the hospital getting my appendix out, was The Witch.
I knew this was coming.
God, what a fucking bad movie.
You didn't like it.
It was so disappointing.
Yeah, I heard it was good.
It's so overhyped as like a horror movie.
Definitely is overhyped.
I really genuinely don't understand this movie, and this is something you and I have talked about before, Sean. This movie, It Follows, and what's the other one? And the Babadook, all are just like astoundingly overhyped horror movies.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're overhyped, but I really like them. I think that
does that mean it's bad?
No, but when I watch them, I'm looking for some grand, entry and a really novel entry into the horror genre, and it's really not.
Yeah, I think people are just surprised when something from the horror entries are like actually really good, like are refreshing in a sense.
And on top of everything else, they're barely horror movies.
That's true, and it's a different kind of horror, I think.
They're horror movies for mainstream people. They're not horror movies for people that love horror. Like, The Witch was, like, barely a horror movie. It Follows was barely a horror movie.
Okay, but...
The Babadook wasn't a horror movie at all, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, but you...
So, well, they're claiming it's, like, it innovates the genre, and it's just, like, it's an okay horror movie, but it's not this, like, it's not this grand, statement and entry into the horror genre. It's really disappointing.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to make any profound changes to the horror genre, but I think that they are refreshing for being mainstream films, because they are. I mean, that's what they were. They definitely are, and they became that. But I think that like they still have a refreshing, even though they are very commercial, they have a refreshing take on the genre. I'm like okay with it not being jump scares constantly, and I don't know. I think that they're going back to story, which is kind of refreshing, as opposed to like if you watch like The Forest or even The Boy, and like they use very cliche imagery that it's very transparent the way they try to scare you, and I think that that's like refreshing that it's more about the disturbing story than it is of jump scares and shocks and I don't know and gore but
They honestly just struck me more as all style, no substance.
That's fair.
It's just like all about this really, this really obvious and overwhelming amount of style. And then the story is just kind of a throwaway for them to use. Like the story is a vehicle for them to show off this great, style that they're, that they've come up with, especially in The Witch.
Yeah.
And it follows. It's got this very specific style. And the story is, meh.
Yeah, I see. I agree. I agree there are over stylized, but I think to me it's sort of like is a sign that we like are in the like. I think that something's gonna like, and we need a change in horror. You know what I mean? Like you can't have the same sort of horror for too long, or else. I was literally when I was watching Annabelle, I was like, all these movies look the same. These haunted house movies. It looks like Insidious. It looks like The Conjuring. They're all the same. And so I think it feels kind of like
but The Conjuring is a really good movie.
I know, I agree, but they're formulaic now. And if you watch Annabelle, which Warner Brothers I think took over from Blumhouse, it's becoming a formula. If you watch Insidious 3, by the way,
I've only seen the first one.
Right. Well, they become like studio films eventually, and it becomes a lot of the same, just like what they did with Saw and Hostel and all that stuff. But I feel like that these movies are sort of like a sign that we need and want a change in the genre again.
Right. And Chris, if you want horror movies to be respected as a genre, like I've heard you say before, there has to be a period where it morphs from the stereotypically pulpy horror that most people think of to the more mainstream and maybe less good for you personally.
So watered down.
Well, it has to get into the popular mindset.
But that's the thing. I mean, if this were sci-fi, I'd be saying to you the same thing, and you'd be telling me you don't like it also.
Yeah, because science fiction is an established genre and horror isn't.
I mean, science fiction is an established genre, but it's not a mainstream genre.
Really? Dude,
come on. It's mainstream, but I mean, the people aren't going to see the kind of sci-fi movies that you like in theaters. The kind of sci-fi movies that you really like aren't coming out in theaters. When people think sci-fi, they think of Star Wars, John.
Yeah, but people are still aware of this. Like, it's, again, just like horror movies, sci-fi is like further along the track than horror. It's becoming more and more popular in mainstream, and people are learning about the genre, and they're exploring other facets of the genre and watching other movies that they maybe haven't seen or didn't look for because it wasn't acceptable, quote unquote.
Yeah, like Star Wars. I mean, that's my problem, John. It's just like it feels. People are like, "Oh, this is like such an innovative film. It's so crazy and amazing." I'm just like, it's okay, but like so many previous entries into the genre are way better than this.
Yeah, but people have to see the watered down stuff first, otherwise they're never going to go looking for horror movies.
I mean, I don't care if they go looking for other horror movies.
Well,
that's a problem.
You do because you want horror movies to be respected as a genre.
No, I don't care if they're respected as a genre. It's an awesome genre that's paved the way for like every other genre. So many people have gotten their start in bad horror movies. Yeah. So many people started with Roger Corman. It's like a known thing. Like I could care less if it's a respected genre. Frankly, I'd rather it's not. It's never going to be a respected genre because of the subject matter. 3 horror movies in the last 3 years get made that are, breakout films, and then you've got other films like The Forest or other movies that aren't, these breakout films. If that's the route it's going, it's such a slow road. It frankly doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I noticed. I mean, that's sort of how the horror genre works. It kind of waits for an independent breakout that is original, fresh, and seems new, and then the studios like eat it up. Like it's like it's like a bunch of flies.
I honestly think, John, if you watched The Witch, you would be disappointed too.
I mean, probably, but that's because I'm not really into horror movies that much.
Well, it's not really a horror movie, so you might actually enjoy it.
Okay, maybe I'll watch it then.
Yeah, I mean, it's really for it being a horror movie, it's not much of a horror movie.
Yeah,
I mean, but I kind of like there are better indie horror movies that have come out in the last 3 years. Your Next is awesome. Adam Wingard's last movie. I mean, that movie is awesome. Way better than any other horror movie that I've seen the last couple years, and it's barely a horror movie too. So, I don't know. It's just those movies have these like, it's like they like get latched onto by.
Yes, I think so. But I think it's because we don't see enough of it. Like I love It Follows. It Follows is one.
Do we not see enough of it, or is it just not publicized enough?
Maybe both, but I think that there's only some like what John was saying. I think there's only so much that will be accepted, and like that's another thing. Like I have to accept that my taste as a filmmaker and as an avid horror like fan, like it's going to be skewed compared to what's mainstream and what is even going to show up in theaters ever.
Oh no! I mean, I know my taste in horror is totally not like the mainstream, and I could frankly care less. But like these mainstream horror movies that keep coming out that are just like, oh, this is so crazy! Isn't this movie awesome? I'm just like, meh, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
It'd be like, John, if somebody watched like, I don't even know what like a relatively mainstream sci-fi movie is off the top of my head, like the 2009 Star Trek movie,
or like The Fifth Wave.
Yeah, and they were like, man, sci-fi's awesome, dude. Like, I love the genre. I just be like, okay.
Yeah, and then my response would be, oh, you should check out this movie, and here's this idea.
And then they would hate it.
I don't think so. Not if they like the core of what science fiction is that they saw from Star Trek.
Yeah, see, it could be like a gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, hold on. And then they'll watch Stargate and say Stargate's bad.
Yeah, well, then they're dumb.
What are you talking about, John? You sound a little bitter, bro. Is it because Stargate's bad?
No, it's because Stargate's awesome. I'm apparently friends with don't understand it.
You're just cool old scum, dude. Be quiet. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, let's get this argument continuing towards some Werner Herzog films. Let's talk about Grizzly Man from 2005. The film is another one of Werner Herzog's documentaries, and it chronicles the life and death of bear enthusiast Timothy Treadwell. The IMDb synopsis for the film is a devastating and heartrending take on grizzly bear activists Timothy Treadwell and Amy Huguenard, who were killed in October of 2003 while living among grizzlies in Alaska.
Timothy Treadwell lived among the grizzly bears in the Alaskan wilderness. During that time, he shot over 100 hours of videotape. Until 2003, when he was killed by one of the bears he had sworn to protect.
Well, I'm here with one of my favorite bears. It's Mr. Chocolate. Hey, Mr. Chocolate. He's been with me for over a decade, and he's been my good friend. Oh, he's a big bear. He's a big bear. A very big bear. Wow.
When you spend a lot of time with bears day after day, there's a calling that makes you want to come in and spend more time in the world.
Expedition 2001, I came here and protected the animals as best I could. In fact, I'm the only protection for these animals out here. Animals rule. Timothy conquered.
He tended to want to become a bear.
Most times I'm a kind warrior out here. Occasionally I am challenged. And in that case, the kind warrior must become a samurai.
I think he had lost sight of what was really going on. Or he got what he was asking for, he got what he deserved.
Come here and try to do what I do. You will die. You will die here. We need more rain! Melissa is eating her babies. Timothy, I'm getting a bad feeling about you. I can smell death all over my fingers. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals.
Now the longhorns are gone, and the drovers are gone. The Comanches are gone.
This is my life. This is what I do. I love it.
Geronimo's gone.
He says, if I don't come back, it's what I want.
And the lion is gone, and the red wolf is gone.
John, quick take on the film.
And that's my story here.
Typical Werner Herzog, and sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad, and you really have to be in the mood for it. I think that Grizzly Man is one of my less favorite Herzog documentaries, and we can get into the specifics of why later. But I don't know. This is weird for me because I liked the ideas in the movie, and I sort of connected with Timothy Treadwell's, whole ideology.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
And I also totally get Werner Herzog's, and so there's a lot of connection going on for me, but I wasn't really a fan of the way that it was presented.
What about you, Sean?
So I had seen this movie before. Actually, this is the one movie I'd seen before we saw any of Werner Herzog's movies. So it's interesting how I felt before and how I feel now watching it. Definitely, it's not like I haven't seen all of his documentaries, but it definitely stands out to me compared to the other films he's made that I've watched. Very interesting. It's definitely it's the first time I see a little bit of bias. But I remember hearing about Timothy Treadwell before this movie came out. I remember my mom telling me when it was in the news about what happened, and I've always been so interested in this guy. So it's very interesting. It kind of reminds me of Into the Abyss, where it's a very real event with very real people. Oh, so I don't know. So I enjoyed it, but it's definitely interesting. It's different. It's a different kind of Herzog film for me.
You know, I had seen this before. It had been a while, though. I want to say I had seen this film almost 7 or 8 years ago now. I would say of the Werner Herzog films that we've watched so far and the ones that I've seen as a watcher of his films, it's the most mainstream of his films that we've seen.
Yeah.
It's a pretty mainstream, straightforward documentary. I mean, he does have a couple interesting things to say here and there, but I think kind of in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty mainstream film that's easily consumed by large amounts of people, as opposed to, say, Fitzcarraldo or Into the Abyss. That being said, I kind of agree with you, John. It does have some interesting things to say. I think it's a little less than some of his other films. I think it's a lot less than some of his other films. And his bias does show through. I don't know if it's any more than normal, but it shows through, at least in my mind, about the same as what I would, come to expect from a documentary, having seen Into the Abyss. But, I think like other Herzog films, it's a downer of a movie. The subject matter is not it's not optimistic subject matter. It's pretty morbid subject matter, which, again, when you have a film like Into the Abyss, which is about the capital punishment system in the United States and talking to a man who's on death row, and then you switch to Grizzly Man, which is, recounting the life of a guy who, got eaten by these bears. It's pretty just kind of morbid subject matter. So
the subject matter, I think, is kind of why I didn't like it as much.
It's like knowingly morbid.
Well, I mean, kind of, but so the other Herzog documentaries, especially, that are good, I've seen, Encounters at the End of the World, Little Dieter Learns to Fly, what you've told me about Into the Abyss. They're all, Werner Herzog is a very sort of existential, almost nihilistic downer, like life is chaos.
Very nihilistic.
Right, and so it's, when he's dealing with existential, nihilistic, cynical subject matter, it works because that is, he can give narration and talk about it and express his feelings on it, and it's pretty, fits, right? I mean, when you're talking about the prison execution system, it's totally, fully acceptable to go morbid, what is the point, I'm sad. And Grizzly Man, the outcome of Grizzly Man is totally, it's a tragic, depressing, what was the point of all this ending. But Timothy Treadwell, a lot of his time in the wild and on camera and stuff is not that specifically. Him being out in the wilderness to him is saving him. It's optimistic. He loves it. And Werner Herzog, looking at that through his, depressed, sad lens, sort of warps it and adds a bias twist to it that's, I feel like, sort of waters down what the audience could have gotten otherwise if a more straight man director had been presenting the video footage. Because you can make all of the jumps with Timothy Treadwell just based on his video footage, from I'm happy and I love it to sometimes I'm sad because I have weird emotional ups and downs, to maybe I'm getting too much into this, to eaten. And you can make all those jumps with him and feel it all and see it all and understand that he's starting to get a little out there, without Werner Herzog interrupting a scene and saying, this is where I disagree with Timothy. I don't think that nature is perfect and beautiful. I think it's chaotic and death and murder.
That's one of the things that's one of the reasons why I say that this seems to have more of a bias, especially in that regard, for hearing the director's voice in that way. But it's interesting to me because this is sort of a documentary that was already filmed for him. And it's interesting that it's almost like, as a filmmaker, as a documentarian even, it's almost like he's kind of reflecting on himself in this movie. It's just such a weird case because most of it has been shot already, Mm-hmm. And what I found kind of strange was some of the interviews that he did with, for example, the guy that worked at the the guy who worked in the morgue, who got the bodies afterwards. It's such a very dramatic retelling of what happened. It almost feels scripted at times, and that to me stood out as different in his.
Either scripted or that's a very descriptive mortician.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that obviously took the place of them showing you the pictures, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still, that guy was like, we know this about this person because she said this and she was there, and
right.
That's not. I feel like a normal mortician wouldn't have just given that information that way. You know what I mean?
It's very emotional, mm-hmm. It's very heated in that sense.
I understand kind of the idea that this movie does have the bias, and I think it does have a fair amount of bias to it, but I think that's what kind of makes it such a good film. Is, if we were presented Treadwell's footage with no context or bias, and it was just, and obviously, another documentarian could have done this, where it's just the footage cut together with title cards in between, or just text, overlaid over it, explaining what's going on. I think that, that would have been another route. But Werner Herzog, a lot of his, half of his films, and half of the ones we've seen so far, he becomes obsessed about the subject matter, and his subject matter is often people that are obsessed. You look at a film like Fitzcarraldo, where the main character in the film is obsessed with the opera and obsessed with bringing this opera house to the Amazon. And then you look at this film where, Timothy Treadwell is obsessed. He was obsessed with bears. That's just the long and the short of it. And then you have films like Aguirre, which we're going to be watching here later, where it's, another obsessed man, in the Amazon. I think that the best case scenario for Timothy Treadwell's story was being told by someone who understands people who are obsessed and have obsessions. And with that, obviously, it comes with Werner Herzog's kind of, I don't know if Werner Herzog at his core is a nihilist. I think he's got very specific principles about the way he looks at the world. I'm not sure he's a nihilist outright. But with the fact that Werner Herzog is making a film about Timothy Treadwell, it does come with this specific commentary, because that's just the way Werner Herzog is, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that, yeah, I agree. I think that, and like you said before.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Like, this man is obsessed, and what's interesting about it is the way that when we get the facts and we start putting pieces together, I mean, you can't help but wonder. I mean, even just watching his footage, it's like this man was definitely, he thinks differently. He deals with his problems very different. I mean, he talks about how he struggled with alcoholism and how this sort of saved him. And and John said this, like, this is how he sort of saved himself. But yet it's another form of it's an unhealthy, almost obsession. And of course, it ends up leading to his death.
I never got the sense in this film that Timothy Treadwell ever really confronted his problems. They talk about the whole alcoholism and how, he was what sounds like a failed actor in Hollywood. I never got the sense that he confronted his problems, because he just ran away to Alaska to be with the bears.
I mean, he ran away in summer. He still did things in the real world during.
Yeah. No. I understand that, but throughout the footage in the film, you get the sense that there's this like underlying sense of him trying to like prove himself to people. Like, he's always trying to like prove someone wrong, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole later half of the film. And one of the more striking parts of the film is that tangent that he goes on.
Where he's cursing out the Park Service?
Yeah, where he's like screaming about the Park Service and calling them, fucking assholes. I mean, this movie's rated R really only because of the fact that Timothy Treadwell curses so much. Yeah. You get the sense that he was always trying to prove his self-worth to other people.
I mean, he's definitely. I mean, there's no denying that Timothy Treadwell had some issues.
Deep-seated issues.
Right. But I also sort of got the feeling that it was the more time that he spent out there, the more time he was there and enjoyed it more than he ever did the civilization, the more sort of the less like restricted by his idea of what the rules are, and the more he disdained people that did follow the rules of civilization and society. And so he definitely gets more aggressive, but I don't know if it's entirely because he feels like he needs to prove himself. I feel like there's also a pretty large part of it is they're idiots for still doing that and being there and being a part of that system.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see that. I think that in the hands of a different filmmaker that isn't as talented and as kind of nuanced as Herzog, you might have gotten the sense that they were kind of poking fun at Timothy Treadwell.
I mean, I got the sense that Werner Herzog was kind of a little bit.
I didn't get that at all. I really didn't get that. I'm curious, what stuck out to you in the film as him poking fun at Timothy Treadwell?
There wasn't a lot of it. Obviously, because I would be way more pissed about it if there was. But it's just, and it maybe wasn't even intentional, but there are a couple lines every now and then that pop up at the beginning when he's flying out to the spot in the helicopter or in the plane or whatever it is. And he's describing Timothy Treadwell for the first time before we see Treadwell on camera. And he's like, he styled himself as a knight errant, defending the wilderness, but this land is already a federal reserve, so it was sort of pointless, right? And I forget, like, the exact line, but he almost just goes like, but there was no real reason for Timothy Treadwell to be out here. And then he, the rest of the documentary continues, and every now and then there would be a line where it was like, maybe not making fun of Timothy Treadwell, but definitely saying this was pointless and insane.
I agree. I think that he definitely, but I think I see the critiques to me. He says things also like, and this stuck out to me since we watched Cobra Verde, but like, from the beginning of this, he looks at the footage and like he talks about how, Timothy was able to accidentally capture incredible like moments that, without even noticing maybe. And to me, that's how even in his critiques, it's almost like this is it feels very personal to me from Herzog himself. It's almost like he's reflecting on himself as a filmmaker, as an artist, and the way that Timothy sort of uses this as his outlet as well. It's like his own art form, its own escape. And I sort of sensed the critique as sort of a reflection or as a connection between the two of them. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
John, I think I took that scene that you're referencing a little differently. I just took it as Herzog being like, look, like a lot of shit's pointless and people do it.
Well, right, but
like,
that's
movie making is pointless on its face.
Exactly.
Right.
It's art, right? So what this guy was doing, like Sean was saying, it's kind of self-reflective. It's like movie making's pointless. It's art. This guy was protecting the wilderness, even though it was already protected. So it's pretty pointless,
right? But
isn't
it's
it?
still.
Like,
I mean, I don't think that Werner Herzog was like this fucking guy. But I mean, there's definitely at points Werner Herzog says things that not directly, but sort of demean Treadwell's whole philosophy and ideology. Even if it's not intentional, that still exists, and that's just another part of the Herzog bias when he covers the life and times of somebody who's not as dour as he is. It's bound to happen because he has different psychological ideals and views. So, of course, there's going to be a clash, and it's going to seem like he's going, well, this guy there was no reason for him to be here. It was pointless death, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't necessarily take into account Treadwell as an individual with different values than Herzog.
No, but I mean, that is the documentarian bias, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
Yeah, but I mean, documentaries exist that do it less than this one.
And there are documentaries that do it more.
Well, yeah, of course there are, but where I'm saying that I prefer documentaries that do it less. And I don't like documentaries that do it more. And I'm not saying that Herzog is worse than them, because he's not. He still makes excellently shot and framed and, expressive documentaries that say what he feels need to be said, but he does tend to gloss over the individual in favor of the overarching idea of the world.
I have to disagree with that, because I think he lets Treadwell speak for himself pretty well in this film, that Herzog doesn't even have to. I mean, like I said earlier, I don't think Herzog really needed to add his narration to this film. I think,
I agree.
It could have stood on its own, but I respect and enjoyed the film more because it did have his narration and the deft use of his narration. And I know that you disagree with that because of the amount of bias in the film, but I think that his narration allows me to see the way he processes Treadwell.
Yeah.
Versus how that's the thing that I enjoyed the most about this film, is I was curious how, and I think the audience would be curious too, since Herzog picked Treadwell as the subject of his documentary, it allows us to see why Herzog picked him for the documentary as opposed to something else, and what he finds interesting about Treadwell. Just like, versus, and it allows us to compare and contrast versus what I think about Treadwell or what you think about Treadwell or what, any of us think about Treadwell, because we're all going to approach our feelings on Treadwell differently. And, Herzog's narration allows us to see the way he approaches him. But ultimately, I think Herzog leaves enough wiggle room in this film that he allows everyone to walk away with a different feeling towards Treadwell, as opposed to, it just shows Treadwell, punching bears and, just being violent. It's a pretty obvious, conclusion that everyone comes to, but the way that he presents a lot of the footage is it allows for some moral ambiguity in the role of the viewer, if that makes sense.
I mean, that makes sense. I just think that that moral ambiguity and the ability to come away with it with different ideas than everyone else that sees it, I think that exists in the footage alone. And I think that Werner Herzog's narration tends to lean it more towards the pointlessness side, just because that's Werner Herzog. But that's not necessarily, that's not a bad thing if that's what you're looking for. It just exists. It is a thing.
Well, again, just for me, if a documentarian picks a subject, unless, a lot of the time I am curious as to why they did. And I think the narration allows me as the viewer to see why Herzog found Treadwell such an interesting character and what he thinks about him. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of documentaries out there that the narrator there is no narrator, and it's just talking heads and the subject. And then, then the talking heads, to some extent, then you get that situation where the talking heads are biased, and you kind of, through third person bias, kind of see how the documentarian feels about the subject through the third person bias. But honestly, I think it's a little not brave, but it is a little kind of brave that Herzog was just kind of like, fuck it, I'm just gonna say what I feel about it, and it might not be the popular opinion, and frankly, I think that it's not probably the popular opinion, but his opinions, I think some of the angles of his opinion on Treadwell definitely sync up with some of mine, and I know I'm sure there's a majority of the audience that feels in a similar situation to some of the things that Herzog kind of presents and feels towards Treadwell in the film. Speaking of that, John, what are your personal thoughts on Timothy Treadwell?
I see Timothy as sort of a tragic hero, I guess. Like we've already said, he definitely had issues there. He sort of descended into paranoia at the end. He disconnected himself so much that when his flight booking was wrong, he was like, fuck it, I'm going back into the wild, which led directly to him getting eaten. He definitely gets angry at the world for being the world, but at the same time, I totally understand and connect with that idea that, sometimes human society is excessive to the point of restrictive, and there is a different way of living where you are more connected with the world and nature and just sort of the things around you, unspoiled by man, and also grizzly bears being baller. And so when I watched it, I felt very connected to Timothy Treadwell, and watching the evidence of his growing issues made me sad that he was dealing with all that sort of stuff. And then at the end, I was like, when he gets eaten, it's tragic that anybody got eaten by bears at all. But at the same time, there are multiple points in the film where he says that's how he wants to go, because this is what he loves and cares about. And so even though it's tragic that he's dead, it's almost a relief that his story doesn't end with him dying in his sleep or in a car accident back in civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can agree with that. What about you, Sean?
I really relate to Timothy as an artist. I mean, one of the things they talk about a lot throughout the movie is his passion for, and his cause, his mission that he's so clear on. And I think that that's something that I really admire. As an artist, I'm always looking for my mission, what's my purpose in doing this? And he really has that. And I think that that's really beautiful. And what's also really cool is that he's in his own world in the Grizzly Maze, and he's creating his own adventure, and I have such an admiration for that, or respect for that, and I understand that. I very much understand like how easy it is to get lost in your own world and your own like ideas and passions. And in a way, I kind of envy him for having that ability to do that. And I also have a love for animals and a fear for things that will kill me. So that's the dichotomy that I work. But he does get incredibly close to these animals, and it is almost majestic watching. And his relationship with those foxes it's just so sweet. And one of the things I'm surprised we haven't talked about, actually, back when I was in high school, I remember I had a friend who had watched this documentary, and he was talking about how this is the first time I actually heard of this movie and of Timothy Treadwell. He was talking about how, when you hear the word Grizzly Man, you have a certain idea in your mind or a certain image, and how Timothy Treadwell kind of breaks that image that you might have of what a grizzly man is. And
he's not a mountain man.
Yeah, he's not. He's kind of has this sort of like childlike, almost effeminate quality to him that isn't associated with a grizzly man, what you would think a grizzly man is. And it's kind of awesome. Like he talks about his sexuality a little bit, and it's not a gay thing. It's what's funny is when I first heard that, I immediately, my mind goes to, is he, is it a sexual thing? There's an identity thing there. But to me, I didn't sense that at all this time watching it. It's a guy who has very peculiar obsessions, not even peculiar, but just very passionate and consuming obsessions. And I guess as obsessions are, but it's just amazing to see how it manifested, because it is a unique story because of that.
Are you the helicopter pilot that says he got what he fucking deserved?
No, I'm not that harsh. I'm not that harsh about kind of what happened, because I'm not, I think that some of the people interviewed in the film, like the helicopter pilot, they're like, he got what was coming to him.
The real tragedy is that he took a woman with him.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really one of the worst parts about this film.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
It's the fact that Treadwell had someone else with him. It's kind of like that thing where there's like someone who goes on like a spree shooting and then they kill themselves at the end, but they killed like 13 other people with them. And it's just like, why didn't you just kill yourself as opposed to just like killing a bunch of people and yourself?
Yeah, but we don't have any information on her motivations for being there. I mean, she was part of the Grizzly Foundation. She's on scene looking at bears. It's not like he dragged her out into the woods to get eaten with him. She knew what they were doing.
This is some kinky shit. Want to get eaten together? No, and you're right, but at the same time, they do make a case that, and they mention that she was not a fan of being out there with the bears.
She was afraid of bears. That doesn't mean she was out there against her will. We don't get to know that because her parents won't talk about it.
Again, I don't think that Timothy Treadwell like kidnapped her and was like, bears, come eat her. But
and there are shots where she gets really close to bears.
Yeah,
it seems to me like she was there because she liked him and she wanted to be a part of his world, and she thought it would be interesting to face her fears and be there with him with the bears.
Right, and again, I'm not saying that it's like terrible that he dragged her into it. I'm just saying it's terrible that more than one person had to die to the bears.
Specifically by the bears.
I mean, to be fair, that mortician says that they pulled 5 people out of that bear.
Oh, that's right. So
it's not like Timothy Treadwell went out there and pissed off a bear and got eaten. That bear was a man-eater.
Right. No, that's fair. But, I lean towards he kind of got what was coming to him, but it's not as kind of cold. And I mean, the helicopter pilot or the airplane pilot in this film, like, he lives in Alaska. And so, the people up there, I mean, they interview a tribal leader up there. And he's like, look, he crossed some lines that are like forefathers would be like, you're taking your shit into your own hands here, man. Like, that to me is the way I look at it. Yeah, he was passionate, and I've seen this, with other people, in my own personal life, people who are super passionate about something sometimes let their passion cloud their judgment.
Sure.
Yeah, but
no, he allowed his passion to cloud his judgment. Any sane person, or even half-sane person, would know better than to be camping next to a stream where the bears eat.
But that's the thing, is he didn't think he wasn't going to get eaten. He knows he's going to get killed by a bear. He knows they're dangerous, but he does it anyway because he likes it. That's not clouding his judgment. That's him making decisions because he has different value systems than you do.
Well, I mean, that's fine. He's allowed to have different value systems than me. And to some extent, I think he had a fucking death wish. And he mentions he has a death wish, like, over and over again. But he, again, not to be a dick, but you go near the bears. You want to get eaten by bears. Well, you don't want to get eaten by bears, but it's not something you're really worried about. Yeah. It's something that you've voiced in letters to people saying, hey, this is the way I want to go. And then the bear eats you. Like, the people getting upset in this film about the fact that he got eaten by bears, or it's such a tragedy, or it's so sad.
Yeah.
It's not sad. He got exactly what it's not that he got what was coming to him. He got what he wanted. He got exactly what he wanted, which was to become one with the bear in whatever kind of... I mean, he became one with the bear, right? I mean, like, that's what my kind of takeaway from this. Yeah. He got exactly what he wanted in the end. But, on the subject of him as a person, yeah, he was troubled.
Yeah, I think that's the part that makes it sad. It's like you said, I'm not, this isn't a movie to watch in order to, like, it's not about being sad for him getting mauled by a bear. I mean, that is inherently just upsetting. But it's more sad to me that he couldn't find this is the only way he could find peace, you know what I mean? And this is the only way he could retreat. And I think that part is sad, Yeah,
I mean that for me it's just like he could never find what he was looking for in life outside of being in the woods with grizzly
almost
bears.
Being eaten. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's sad. It's not sad because, that's the way he wanted to live his life, but I cannot sympathize. I have no compunction to go and have a death wish and live 10 feet from grizzly bears. I mean, and that's just the reality of this film is that, as someone who has no compunction like that, it's hard for me to be like, oh, I understand where he's coming from. It's just like, he had an obsession with bears, and that obsession with bears was his way of dealing with some deep-seated problems that he had in his own life. And that's where he felt comfortable, was in nature, not around people.
Yeah.
Where he might have had to answer for his shortcomings or confront his shortcomings. But around the bears in nature, he didn't have to. He kind of just made his own world with the bears. And it's a little it's not creepy, but it's a little unsettling to see someone like anthropomorphizing these giant creatures to the extent he was.
Yeah, it's a little off-putting. I'll agree with that.
Right?
Yeah.
You can at least agree with me on that, right, John? Some of those scenes where he's like talking to the bears like they're humans is a little off-putting.
I mean, I didn't really see it as off-putting. We do that shit to bears, and we do that shit to dogs, and we care about dogs the same way he cared about those bears.
I'm not worried about my dog in the middle of the night eating me alive.
Well, right, but he also wasn't worried about the bears eating him alive as much as we would be. He went out there for 13 years. He watched those bears grow up from when they were cubs. I mean, sure, his other option was to get on all fours and growl at them, trying to learn their language, but he's a human, so of course he's going to communicate and talk with them as a human.
And to be fair, we don't know if he did that or not.
Well, that's true. He does a little, at one point he gets a little bit bear-formed, I guess.
It kind of alludes to that in the film a little bit.
Well, to me, the part that's disturbing is that he says it's the way he sort of prescribes meaning to what like the bears are doing. That kind of, I mean, I guess we do that with dogs, but it's like when he finds the bear cubs that the adult bears had like mauled and eaten. He says things like it's so mean, and it's interesting. Like, and that's where I think even Herzog sort of says I don't think of it as he says he thinks of it as chaos. He sees it as chaos. That's the common denominator. But to some, and I agree with that, but it's just like, it's interesting to me how, when you say personify, to me, it's almost how he makes, it's like a belief. I don't know. It's weird. I talk to my dogs, trust me, like no one else. Like I talk to them all the time, but I also know to some extent that I'm projecting emotions and personality traits and things onto that dog. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
I have an awareness of that.
And I'm sure that he did too, but there's also the component of being alone.
Sure.
Like when I lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment for a year, I talked to pretty much everything just to hear my own voice and to make sure that I could still speak. I was like, I'm making a sandwich. Hello, sandwich. Nom, nom, nom.
That's like, totally fair.
And so I think it's him connecting with the animals, and also combined with him just being alone out there. I think that's just him coping with the way that the human mind works. It needs social interaction.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's true. There's lots to be said about that. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of unfair I always think about that. Like 2 months alone in the same environment constantly, that does something. You know what I mean? That's the very,
Yeah, but I think in the grand kind of context of the film as a whole, when you look at the way he interacts with the bear in the grand kind of picture of the film, it's just like, man, like that, it's just not right for me. Again, it's just like, man, like normal people don't do that. And that's fine. He wasn't normal. He, like I said, he was, he had this very strange compunction towards the bears. But that's what makes him so interesting as subject matter for the film.
Absolutely. This whole thing to me is like an ironic parody of The Crocodile Hunter or Steve Irwin. It's just like he was, in his mind, he was like the bear, he was the savior of these bears. And like, it's amazing. Like, I mean, I think I have a quote here from Steve Irwin who says, "I have no fear of losing my life. If I have to save a koala or a crocodile or a kangaroo or a snake, mate, I will save it." And I think that's like the strange absolute essence of Treadwell. It's just in a much different light. It's just funny. They're kind of the same person, with the same fate, but we don't think of Steve Irwin as like a crazy guy, or even eccentric.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because he has a human wife and daughter.
That's true.
They're a lot. They humanize him a bit.
That's pretty true. But we always, up until he actually died, doing what we always thought he would die from. We always made fun of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
It's also interesting now, since we're talking about like other people that interact with nature. That whole like I will save an animal if I can save it thing. I think the one time where I really sort of disagreed with anything that Treadwell was doing on a like personal level was when during that drought and he starts like shaping the river to try and get the salmon to run up it.
Yeah.
And like screaming for rain. And like during that whole bit, I was like, I mean, that is nature. That is what they do during droughts.
Yeah.
It's sort of against the general idea of observing wildlife, and being one with nature is a sort of like what's the word? Like an almost no interaction, just like watch, and like if an animal is chasing another animal, you don't stop the cheetah from eating the hyena.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be passive.
Right, and so that's the only time, because most of the time he's just sitting there watching them and like talking to them and being like, look, aren't they pretty? But then at those points, he's like, I'm actively taking part in this. And that was the only part where I was like, okay, I'm not with that.
Yeah.
But I also, being sad, finding a grizzly cub skull, that's a different thing. That's just his opinion of what the bears are doing. But when he actually, like, makes a stream for the salmon to run up all the way up the river, that's the step where I'm like, okay, that's where I'm not with you.
Well, and I think that, that kind of aspect of the film, to me, that kind of, I think he was always treading that line of, getting involved, not getting involved. And I think that for me is just like, man, like, this is not, you don't need to be doing this.
But I mean,
right?
That is the only example in the movie of him doing it, though. Like when the bears are fighting,
for you,
well,
that's the thing.
That's true, but I assume that. I mean, I don't know. That's another thing about watching a documentary is it's hard to say. You have to make judgment calls based on what you see in the documentary and what is shown to you, and so it's hard to say. Well, he didn't do it often most of the time. Like I'm under the assumption that he didn't do that very often because he did that in the documentary in an extreme case, and when the bears are like fighting, he's not like yelling for them to stop. He's just like, "Oh wow, oh man, oh," he's just like commenting on it as opposed to being like, "Bears don't do this to your friends."
Yeah, see, that's my thing. I want to believe that he wasn't doing that stuff all the time, but you do it once, you know what I mean? It's like that's like a slippery slope doing stuff like that, where you're trying to change the world around you to better benefit the things that are going on. Where he's like, he's trying to make it so that the salmon could swim upstream to the bears so that they would stop eating their youngs, which he found to be sad and upsetting. Yeah. It's like that's like a slippery slope because documentarians are normally not supposed to get directly involved with the subject. I mean, they can. There's nothing really stopping them. How have we not talked about the most kind of important scene in the film for me? And we'll close on this because I think that this scene in the film is kind of one of the more important. How have we not talked about the scene where Herzog listens to the tape?
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say.
Like I found that scene to be kind of the linchpin of the film.
I mean,
one of two linchpins, that and the scene where he's screaming at the Rangers and the world.
I mean, like the tape itself is very important, but I feel like the mortician guy did a better job of sort of telling us what was going on when they were being eaten more than Herzog's reaction to the tape. Like Herzog's reaction to the tape, I found it different from the rest of the movie. Like he was like, "Oh God, we cannot do this. We cannot listen to this," and I like laughed, and then I was like, "Oh, that's really fucked up that I just laughed at that," because it's almost like everything else is very like, look at the life of this man, we're unflinching, we're showing you everything about it, and then that scene is like, out of respect, we can't show this. And that's fine, but if that's why you're not showing the tape, you can just not show the tape. You don't have to have that scene where you tell Treadwell's, I don't know, pseudo naturalist widow, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. That's the way he describes
right.
it. Yeah.
And you don't have to have the scene where you tell her that she should destroy it because if she keeps it, it will always be a shadow looming over her. Like if you're not going to show it, that scene isn't necessary, especially when you have the mortician saying in the tape, you can hear Timothy yelling, "Get away, get away," in a voice that's clearly he realizes he's dead and there's no reason for both of them to die, and he tells her to run. Like he's describing the tape step by step and saying what it means about both of those people.
I actually completely disagree with you. I think that that scene is necessary because it's the only time you see Herzog on camera, and like for all of the kind of disconnected narration from kind of what he's talking about in the film, it kind of like all of that disconnected narration doesn't matter when he's listening to that tape. And it kind of allows you to be like, okay, so Herzog, even at his core, like, like this shit like really gets to him, even when he's acting somewhat disaffected in the narration.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, like he's crying, right? Like he's crying because that woman starts crying too. So like, and you don't get to see Herzog crying on film, but because it's filmed from an angle where it's behind him with, Timothy Treadwell's like naturalist widow facing the camera, but like he's crying.
You get enough to see. Yeah.
You understand that this is like deeply unsettling and affecting him, and this is the same person who's 10 minutes later in the film or before is like I disagree. He was deeply troubled, yet he's crying over this tape.
I mean,
I don't think he's crying just because of the loss of life.
I mean, right? I don't think that Herzog is disaffected or unemotional through the rest of the film. Herzog's narration, he clearly has feelings about everything happening. That's why you can see the bias of Herzog's documentary. So I don't think that as I was watching it, I never was like, Herzog is just giving us the information and he doesn't have feelings or emotions one way or the other. And that scene, yes, you get to see Herzog in a very emotional setting. But I don't know if I think it was necessary to understand that Herzog cares about this, because even just knowing Herzog as an auteur, you know that he cares about everything that he makes, almost everything at least.
I remember when I saw this, because that was one of the things about the story that I had already known about. Like, everyone who knows about the story or was told about the story knows that, like, it was caught on tape, essentially, because that's what he did. And so, like, I remember the first time I watched this, going into it, I was wondering if they were going to show it or hear it, my morbid curiosity. But I kind of think that that's the sort of purpose it serves, in a sense that, like, we do get to see exactly why or exactly how emotionally connected and spiritually connected, Herzog is to this subject and to this guy. But I mean, it also kind of allows us to listen to it with him as we watch him react to it, and without actually hearing it, and we kind of replay what the mortician was saying in our minds. But I kind of agree. It's like I'm kind of in the middle. I'm on the fence with this one, because it does almost. I remember that part of the movie sticking out to me, and it still does, because it is so different from his other. I mean, it was when we see him, it's just a different moment from his documentaries that we've ever seen, and I don't know. It's kind of on the fence for me, because you do get to experience that, and I think that there is some validity in that, and it does add some certain weight. But it's also like it's kind of like almost, it didn't really go all the way. I don't know. It's interesting.
And
I remember.
Well,
I don't think
I'm just glad it didn't feel exploited.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean, like, it's like when you're talking about something like that, it's like Faces of Death,
exactly,
like snuff film on like Daily Motion or Vimeo,
right?
Like,
exactly.
Shit they won't put on YouTube.
Right.
Like it's like that level of like,
a shock.
It could have gone super exploited.
Yeah.
And I don't think that scene was bad. I'm glad that the scene was in the movie. I just don't know if I would call it a linchpin of the movie as a like necessary thing. I think it added weight, sure, but I just don't know if I think it's a necessary requirement for the film.
No, I can see that. I mean, I guess it really falls on is my personal kind of feelings on the film and my interpretation of the film and how that scene affects that. So, I mean that for me, that for me is just like it really stands out in the film, for me at least.
Narratively speaking, it just makes sense that it ends on that note too.
Well, I mean the way the film ends, I think, is so. It's an interesting way to end the film too, where it's just like, and they spread his ashes. Like at the end of the film, like it almost feels like all the commentary up until that point doesn't really matter, because Herzog's like, but ultimately at the end of the day, like, he was a normal guy. I mean, like, he was like a normal person at the end of the day with people that cared about him, regardless of the bear thing. And, like, look at the way people are, that's like the mindset, right? Where it's like, he got what was coming to him. Like, because these people who live in Alaska, like, they probably know other people that got mauled by bears.
Yeah.
And it's like, this guy, like, and that's, like, I completely understand where they're coming from. Like, I knew someone in high school that got mauled by a bear when they were in Alaska. Like Timothy Treadwell wasn't like making light of it, but you know what I mean? It's like, he got what he was coming to him. Like, all right, well, shit, man. Like, some harsh shit.
A little less sympathy, please.
Yeah, like the like shit, man. You just fucking go for it. So, well, John, skip it or watch it.
I think watch it. So it's probably not one of the Herzog documentaries that I like the most, but it is different from most of his other documentaries. Generally, when I watch a Herzog film, I'm not emotionally involved or connected. I'm just sort of watching it and going, interesting.
I like that.
But this one, because it wasn't a documentary on nature or a concept. It was a documentary about a guy who was a real human being with points on the whole spectrum of connection with humans. This really, like, emotionally, this movie got me, even if I didn't really like the documentarian bias of it. So I guess I have to say watch it.
What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I think watch it for sure. This is the first movie of Werner Herzog's that I've ever seen, and it is very
Werner Herzog.
Oh my god,
who the fuck is that?
Sorry, I just woke up. I think it's Herzog's first movie that or the first movie of Herzog's that I've seen, and it definitely, now that I've seen a few more, it's very different. It very much is a standout of his, in a not, in an interesting way. I think it's worth a watch. This story is pretty intriguing itself. I mean, Treadwell is an interesting guy. It's a fun, and the stuff he gets on tape, man, it is kind of breathtaking. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely worth a watch.
At one point, there's swims with a bear. Yeah, and it's like, oh, that is amazing.
Right.
Well, and that swimming with the bear scene, isn't that during the narration from the Native American?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where he's crossing the line, right, and then you see him like doing that. You're just like, uh-oh. Like, uh-oh. I agree with you guys. It's a watch. My feelings on, the bias in the film and Timothy Treadwell aside, it's a very interesting film. The subject matter, I think, automatically lends itself to intrigue, like you said, Sean. It's Werner Herzog's. If you're watching a Werner Herzog documentary, you know what you're getting into. So it's not like this should come as some surprise that the subject matter is very distinct and different from other documentaries. So it's a good film. I don't know if it's my favorite Herzog documentary, but it's a very good documentary. John and Sean,
yes,
what do you think the film has on Rotten Tomatoes?
80%.
Yeah, that's a good guess. I'm gonna say to be pessimistic, 75%.
But I want to say that the review, like the number of reviews, is going to be on the lower end.
Yeah.
93%.
Wow.
136 reviews counted. Whatever opinion you come to have of the obsessive Timothy Treadwell, Herzog has once again found a fascinating subject.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised, I guess. Yeah. I remember when this movie was playing on TV a lot, especially on like the Discovery Channel, and I think this was especially around the time when when Steve Irwin died, like this became a very interesting subject and people were very interested.
Well, and they also did like a documentary miniseries on Discovery.
That's right.
With his leftover footage called like the Grizzly Man Chronicles.
That's right. They showed like all of it, like in like, yeah, that's right. I remember watching some of that.
They showed like all of his footage, more or less. Yeah. So, well, before I talk about the next Kulturecast, John, anything you want to plug? It's been quite a while since anyone's asked you about plugging things.
I'm running a Shadowrun campaign.
Like on your own?
I mean, with other people, but yeah.
What is that?
Shadowrun? It's like sci-fi dystopian future Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, that's awesome.
Simply. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But it's, it's not something that's online, so I'm just plugging it because it's really the only thing I got going on right now. I'm looking for work in the entertainment industry, but I just graduated, so I'm still in Denton.
Yeah.
John, I heard that there's always the casting couch.
Yes.
They're always looking.
I mean, I guess since I would be the dick in those videos.
John, not that. John, not a straight casting couch.
Oh, okay. Well,
you could still be the dick, though. I mean, by all means, I guess. Nothing's stopping you. It's really nuanced conversation about Herzog and then making gay jokes. Great. And there is nothing about this film that really lends itself to gay jokes, but you're more than welcome to make them, I guess. What about you, Sean?
In the room with us.
I do. We've been watching so much Herzog. Like, I've been trying to like perfect my like Herzog like accent.
Yeah. Receded.
and then Treadwell, he looked at the bear and he was like, Life is pain. Bears are life, so bears are pain too. Oh, God. Sean, what about you? Anything you want to plug?
Sure. Lonely and Horny is out and is on my Facebook page. Check that out. And then also I'm directing a play called Cyrano, A Love Letter to a Friendship, which is opening in Hollywood next month. June 4th is when we're in the Fringe Festival. So.
Hollywood? More like Hollyweird, am I right?
You're absolutely right. So if you're in town, come check us out. Tickets are actually now on sale, and that's also on my Facebook. So, and as always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm Seanifer, and on Facebook, I'm Sean Liang.
Do I have anything to plug? Yeah, my Twitter, @Kulturecast. I want to thank the lovely people at St. Elizabeth's Hospital for the lovely scars I have on my abdomen from my appendectomy I had last week.
Did they put it in a jar or something?
No, I wish, but I was never privy to what it looked like.
Oh.
No, right? I was disappointed. They're like, it was all fucked up. Let me see. Here's my. Okay, I'll leave my cell phone with you as you're getting open. Take a picture.
Yeah, snap one.
I want to Snapchat it to people. No, yeah. So for those of you that don't know, last week during the Civil War and Fitzcarraldo podcast. I was in the throes of appendicitis, so I had to go to the hospital and get an appendectomy a little while after the podcast.
So casual.
Yeah, shit, man. It's not my appendix. No big deal. It's perfectly fine. But other than my Twitter and the nice folks over at the hospital, next one we're going to be talking about the Kulturecast is a feature-length Werner Herzog film, The Enigma of Caspar Hauser.
Is it a narrative?
Yes, I believe so.
I have not had good luck with those.
Herzog is very distinct.
Distinct is a good word for it.
Either you love it or you hate it. It's very, what's the word? Herzogian? What's the word I'm looking for here? Werner Herzog's films are very Herzogian. You're not helping. You're not helping here describe the movies. Oh, God. Thank you, John, for sitting down and talking Grizzly Man with us.
Yep, you're welcome.
And make sure to check out the next Kulturecast.